In this video, I'm going to be telling you some of the best weapon combos in New World, just to make sure you're not running a terrible weapon combo. I will also be telling you the best armor perks, weapon perks, and jewelry perks to go along with each of these weapon combos. I'm going to be doing this all at the start of the video, otherwise it's going to get very repetitive. So let's get into it. Alright, let's start off with armor perks. Armor perks, generally the best perk in the entire game is Elemental Aversion. You want to be running this on every build that you can. This is on all 5 of your armor pieces. You want to be grabbing Elemental Aversion. This is because 90% of the range damage in this game is elemental, even though there is a bow. Bows generally put gems in that make it elemental. Shirking Energy, you want this on one of your pieces. This works for light, heavy, and medium, by the way. There's one for each. Make sure you have one Shirking Energy on your pants or your chest, wherever you can grab it. Shirking Fortification is BIS if you are in heavy armor. Only if you're in heavy, I recommend grabbing Shirking Fortification. It is decent in medium, but in light it is completely useless. Never run this in light. Enchanted Ward is another solid option. Not the best, but it's good. Health is a very good option as well, that you generally want to grab on most of your armor pieces. Refreshing is decent, generally only on healers. Other good perks that you can run are Conditioning. Now, these are build dependent, so if you're a melee, you generally want to go more for slashing because you're getting hit straight up in the face. And if you are a ranged build, you want to be generally looking on Thrust Conditioning or Flame Conditioning because there is a lot, and I mean a lot of fire damage. Another good perk is Haste Vigor. What this does is when you get hit when there's a dot on you, you get 10% haste. Haste is the form of ability in this game. Shrinking Heals is another best in slot perk. Generally, you want to run 5 Shrinking Heals with 5 Elemental Aversion is pretty meta, so 5 of these bad boys with 5 of these. This is really strong because when you dodge an attack, you heal for 250 health plus 1.5% of your max HP. Onto Amulets. Amulets, max health, amazing. Refreshing Recovery, amazing. And then a protection. The protections are generally meta based. So if there's a heavy fire meta, fire protection here is really good. Heavy musket, bow metal, thrust protection, or spear meta, thrust protection can be good as well. Other things you should be running here are Divines. So Divines here is another really solid perk. Increases health from all incoming healing effects. This is potions and life stealing. Another good one is the stamina recovery one. When you are hit below 50% HP, this is changed next pack. You only gain 60 stamina actually, and the cooldown's like a minute now. Purify is really good. It removes all debuffs when you're below 50% HP. Corrupted Progenitor Amulet, amazing to farm. Highly recommend grabbing this. The other amulet I recommend farming, and it's really easy to farm, is Life Ring Amulet. This comes with Divine and Healthy, 2 amazing perks, and then you can choose the third perk. Those are the 2 amulets I would recommend farming if you're not going to go for the Artifact Amulet. For the ring, Leeching, solid. Hardy, amazing. Highly recommend grabbing Hardy. This is the most important ring perk in the entire game. It gives you 3 rolls, valuable. Moral Empowerment, this is only generally played on some range builds, but it's really strong on the range builds. And then you have the damage perk. So fire damage, this is if you're running, let's say, Fire Staff, you want fire damage, bow, thrust damage, slash damage for swords, so on and so on. Keen is a very strong perk as well. Awareness here, this gives you some crit chance. By the way, healers cannot crit heal. Other perks that can be really good are Burning if you're running Fire Staff, or Bloodletting if you're running a bleed build. I sadly there's not really a best in slot ring to farm, so. Light Loop Earring, I recommend farming 100% if you are not grabbing the Artifact Earring. This earring is a monster. It's pretty much BIS. It comes with Regenerating, Healthy Toast, and Refreshing Toast. Consumables cooldowns are 10% faster. This is humongous. All your potions are faster, so you have more survivability. Healthy Toast. When you drink a mana potion, you gain 15% of your base health. This may not seem super useful, but mana potions are generally half the cooldown of other potions, and this is actually a pretty chunky heal. So spamming your mana potions for extra health, extremely useful. Regenerating, 0.5 health every second. This is extremely good in prolonged fights. If you're getting bursts in 10 seconds, you don't see much value, but when the fight's around 30 seconds to a minute, this really starts to shine. Some people like to run Nimble. I personally prefer Regenerating over Nimble. There are 2 toast perks that are really good on your earring. That is Empowering Toast. When you drink a potion, you gain 10% in power. This is strong because the mana potions have low CD. And Fortifying Toast. This is generally only good in heavy or medium, not in light. In light, this is useless. But this gains 20% Fortify, which means increasing your armor by 20%. I forgot to mention one perk, and that is Fire Harnessing. This is actually a really strong perk. Increases your fire damage by 2%. This is only for elemental damage, by the way. So only elemental damage can get these type of harnessing perks. But these are also strong if you want pure DPS. But in terms of stat density, getting something like Elemental Aversion is just simply better. For weapon perks, Keenly Jagged, always on your ranged weapon. I'd highly recommend trying to get Keenly Jagged. Very solid option. Enchanted, very strong on your ranged weapons as well. Attunement, Another extremely good perk. This is pretty much, by the way, a Bis bow. So if you're looking for a bow, this is Bis. Keen Speed down here, really good for mobility. This gains 20% haste for 7 seconds on crit. This is super good. Another perk, a lot of people actually like to run in play crits. This is another great perk as well. But keep in mind, you can't put all perk combinations. So you see here, Keenly Dragon and play crits don't stack, by the way. Basically, there's a PvP perk that makes it so you deal 20% more damage to people with active haste. There's a lot of people who have haste on them, so that perk is extremely valuable in some builds. Generally, that's ran on the ranged weapon and not a melee weapon. And then every build will pretty much run this heart rune right here. There are other heart rune builds. The meta heart rune is this heart rune just for extra survivability, because when you pop it, you get tanky, you heal, and you just run around like a little rat, allowing you to escape. For our first weapon combination, it's going to be Rapier Bow. The finisher and the Syncretic Bow is what I recommend grabbing. Like I mentioned earlier, the Syncretic Bow is basically best in slot. You can farm this extremely easily in Brimstone stands, so it's a solo farm too. The finisher, you farm this open world, you just need to probably X up in chat. The other artifact that you can run for this setup is the Bolt Caster. This is, however, a lot harder to get than the finisher for artifacts, and it's also a lot harder to get a good rapier than grabbing the finisher. So I recommend grabbing the finisher with the Syncretic Bow. If you're going to run the Bolt Caster, I recommend the play crits is a good third option here. If you're going to run the finisher, Keen Speed is nice along with Enchanted. You can also run Attunement if you want as well. For the Syncretic Bow, you would also run Attunement. For the gems that you want to be running in your rapier, you want an int gem, preferably lightning or a arcane gem, something that people don't run as their defense. And then you want the ignite version, so when you hit them, you deal 8% lightning damage per second for 2 seconds. And then for your bow, you either run an opal, 9% damage when your stamina's not full, or you run another int gem like you would in your rapier here. And it would also be ignite, deal 8% nature damage per second. For artifacts I'd recommend running for the bow would generally just be Endless Thirst. Endless Thirst healing consumables are 33% stronger, but healing potions cooldowns are 25% longer. This gives you definitely a lot more survivability in my opinion. It also comes with an illegal perk combination, Fortifying Toast with Empowering Toast. The perk I recommend grabbing on this would be Regenerating. Like I said, Regenerating just insane. 0.5. If you want, you can pick up the Blood Drinker. This gives you 25% lifesteal, but you reduce your damage by 25%. It's the main downside. For this, Mortal Empowerment is really strong. For the armor artifacts, Tumbler Feet Wraps is generally the best thing to run with the bow. This is because of Shirking Bless. Successfully dodging an attack gives you 15% Empower, 25% Fortify, and you also heal for 200 plus 2% of your max HP. But the other artifacts that you can run is the Toon Leather Pants, 10 to all attributes, or you can run Featherweight. This just makes you more overall tanky because this armor is weightless, so it means you can stack more heavier armor to still be in light. For bow, you want to be in light 100%. For the tree you want to be running, this is what I recommend running for the Rapier tree: Flèche, Evade, and Flourish and Finish. You can swap out Flourish and Finish for Riposte if you want more survivability. Flourish and Finish is more damage, but no matter what, you always will run Flèche and Evade. For the weapon perk that you can put on your armor or a weapon if you want is Evade. It's called Omnidirectional Evade. For the bow, you can get Evade Shot, Poison Shot, and Explosive Arrow. This is what I recommend running. Evade Shot for more mobility, Poison Shot, and Explosive Arrow for maximum damage. Now you can sub out Explosive Arrow for rapid shots. You shoot 3 arrows real fast. Pew, pew, pew. The only problem with this is you're stationary while you're firing these, so you have a little bit less mobility, but this does have higher damage. The perk I would recommend grabbing for the bow would generally be Poison Shot. What this perk does is when you hit an enemy with Poison Shot, you apply Weaken, which reduces their outgoing down for like 17% for like 6 or 7 seconds. Really strong. You can grab the Evade Shot and the Explosive Arrow Shot perks if you want as well on your armor, but the best one by far is Poison Shot. The attributes that you're going to want to be running with the bow rapier: 150 to 200 Constitution, 350 Dex, 100 Intelligence. Whatever points you have extra, you generally put into Dex. Or you can go pure Dex, drop the 100 Int, and then go 150 to 200 Con. All right, next up we have the Blunderbuss Fire Staff. Very good at range. You're a pure range build, you have a lot of DPS. Now, the Pestilence is more for healing reduction, as you get a lot of healing reduction perks on the Pestilence. Inferno is more for just overall damage, so pick your poison. You want Pestilence, healing reduction, or Inferno more damage. A mutated dungeon in Great Cleave, or Pestilence you get from the PvP track. So Pestilence is definitely a lot easier to grab in my opinion, because you have to get the Inferno from forward. The gems that you want to be running is this exact gem right here. Put a ruby in here with Inflicted Burn, dealing 8% fire damage per second for 2 seconds. You want to run an opal in your fire staff. I can't slot it. I can't switch this, but it'd be opal ignited where you deal flame damage per second for 2 seconds. Jewelry, you can run Endless Thirst, Blood Drinker, or Ankh. Ankh is more group focused. If you're a solo player, I recommend Endless Thirst, just the best overall artifact for jewelry in my opinion right now. Or Blood Drinker is another good option with some extra lifesteal. I recommend always getting regenerating. If you're not going to run Endless Thirst, Life Loop, this is in my opinion best in slot. Very easy to farm Life Loop as well. Blood Drinker here, if you're going to get Blood Drinker, you would put the fire perk on. Fire damage, you deal 7% more fire damage, since Blunderbuss and Fire Sap both deal fire damage. If you're not running Blood Drinker, you would run Hearty Burning with the fire damage perk. That's pretty much BIS. Hearty is a must on every ring, by the way. The next artifact you can run is Tumbleweed Suit for your armor. This is just insanely good for light. It gives you shirking heals with some extra fortify, and it gives you 50% in power. Super strong. Attuned leather pants is not a bad option. This gives you more attributes. Featherweight makes you overall more tanky. Or the head wrap here. This reduces all crowd control debuffs on you by 20%. If you want to run the Pestilence, the artifact blunderbuss, the Syncretic Fire Staff is the fire staff I recommend running. You run Keenly Jagged, Enchanted with Flame Attunement down here. Deep Priver Blunderbuss, great one to farm. It gives you Keenly Empowered, Strong Perk, and Enchanted. And you run Flame Attunement down here as well. I should also mention, Keen Speed is another good option with some extra mobility. You can't run it on the Inferno. You can run Elemental Ban. This is a new artifact ring. You get this in Hive of Gorgons. What this does is basically you deal elemental damage in 4% in power for 6 seconds, 10-second cooldown. Azoth Conductor here. If in medium equipment weight, deal 15% more elemental damage. I assume this is going to be super strong. Winged Leather Shoes. This drops in the Elysian Wilds from killing this boss right here. This gives you base duration on your haste, increased by 50%, and you deal 10% base damage while haste, so you don't hit the empowered cap as easily. This just allows you to do more overall damage. Fire Staff here, I recommend getting Fireball, Pillar of Fire, and Burnout here. I would pretty much run exactly what I have here. For the weapon perks, Fireball and Pillar of Fire is good, and if you choose to run Flamethrower over Pillar, the Flamethrower perk is also decent as well. Don't get the Burnout perk, it is useless. Blunderbuss, I recommend running Splitting Grenade, Net Shot, Shrapnel Blast here. I'd run pretty much what I have here as well. For the stats you want to be running for this build, it'd be 150 to 200 Constitution, 50 Strength, and the rest of your points will be Intelligence. Next we have the Ice Gauntlet with the Fire Staff. This is more AoE focused than the Blunderbuss. The Ice Gauntlet has more AoE. 2 artifacts you can run is Deep Freeze or Inferno with this once again. You deal more damage to the enemies that are chilled or rooted or frozen. This is mainly procced through the Ice Gauntlet. I'd recommend putting Flame Attunement on this, along with an Ignited Opal Gem, 9% damage while your stamina's not full. Inflicts burn, dealing 8% fire damage per second. The Inferno, we've been over this one. I recommend putting Flame Attunement here as well, and then having the exact same Opal as the Deep Freeze if you choose the Fire Staff option. For the artifacts, you can run Light Loop if you want as a normal earring, but the artifact would be Endless Thirst with Regenerating. This is pretty much what I always recommend. Blood Drinker if you want some more life stealing. Ankh if you're more group focused. Endless if you're more solo. Tumbleweed's Feet Wrap is probably the best artifact to run in light. Just simply too good to beat. Attuned Leather Pants, you want some extra attributes, Featherweight, more tankiness, and Head Wrap here. Reduces the base of duration of non-crowd controlling debuffs on you by 20%. Shuriken Heals, Elemental Vigor, remember, best 2 perks. If you choose to run the Infernal, Syncretic Ice Staff, Ice Gauntlet was what I recommend farming. You can put Keen Speed on this bad boy or Flame Attunement. Same, Syncretic Fire Staff. If you go Deep Freeze, Syncretic Fire Staff is the weapon of choice. Keenly Jagged, Enchanted, Flame Attunement, or Keen Speed down here. Syncretic weapons are just too good, man. Once again, I want to highlight the Inferno does 15% more damage when you hit a target within 15 meters. It doesn't show on the other page, but here it does. Elemental Ban, you can choose to swing if you want. Gain a 4% empowerment whenever you hit an enemy with a different elemental. So Ghostly Touch, you can try this one as well. When you hit an enemy with an empower, a lot of people will be empowered. You dispel 2 of their empowers and give yourself 10 seconds of 10% empower. You get this from the PvP island. And you would run Shirking Heals down here. Winged Leather Shoes is another good option. Base duration of haste on you is increased by 50%, dealing 10% more base damage. And haste being on you longer just means more mobility. If you run this, I recommend getting Keen Speed on one of your weapons. If you are going to choose to run medium, I recommend grabbing some Azoth Conductor. This thing seems really strong for medium equipment loads, especially for Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff. 15% more elemental damage. Insane. It gives you health refreshing, health really good. We put Shirking Heals right here as well. For your Fire Staff tree, I recommend getting Fireball, Pillar of Fire, and Burnout. Weapon perks would be Fireball and Pillar of Fire, And if you choose to run Flamethrower over Pillar, you would get the Flamethrower perk as well. For Ice Gauntlet, I recommend running Ice Storm, Ice Spikes, and Entombed. Now, Ice Spikes is pretty hard to hit, so if you want more reliable, then Ice Shower would be the other option as well. If you're dueling, Ice Pylon is pretty strong as well. For weapon perks, Ice Storm, Ice Shower, Ice Spikes, and Entomb all have decent perks. So just look them up, you'll see what they do, and if you like that, then slot them in. They're all decent. For a Fire Staff, Ice Gauntlet, you would either be in light or medium for your armor, and your attributes would be 150 to 200 Constitution, and the rest of your points would be Intelligence. Next up, we have Sword and Spear. I would say this is one of the easiest weapon combos in New World to actually play. This is kind of like if you're like a dad gamer and you want something that just super strong and super easy to play. The Sword and Spear for PvP is mwah! Artifacts, you have the Butcher for the sword and the Scorpion Stinger. The Butcher comes from Dynasty M1 to N3. So you have to kill, you will get it from the final boss. Scorpion Stinger, you farm this from the Scorpion in Brimstone Sands, or you can get the other Spear, the Venom, where you farm from killing the Siren boss in Reekwater. I will show those later. So where you get the Butcher is from killing this boss. This is so in this dungeon right here. Venom right here. You kill the Siren Queen in a little arena. You have to travel all the way up this road like this until you hit the boss right here. You need a key to enter this one. And then the Scorpion Stinger, you gotta farm the Scorpion, I believe, at night. And it's right up here from the town. So here's the town. It's right up here. Scorpion Stinger is kind of like get over here. You throw a javelin and you yoink the target towards you. This is really strong because you can get a really good CC chain with this. The Butcher has a bleed where if 2 or more enemies, bleeds last 33% longer. So it's a great combo with the Spear because the Spear has a lot of bleeds. And Whirling Blades and ability adds another bleed. With this, you get Empowering Whirl Blade. So this is a must-use perk. And then Keenly Jagged, your third perk. I recommend Gen Slot. You would run Opal with dealing 8% arcane damage. The reason why you would run arcane is simply because no one stacks arcane resist. Scorpion Stinger perks, you get Sundering Javelin and Trenchant Strikes here, really good. Keen Speed is a good option if you want. You can run Enchanted, Vicious, Keenly Jagged on the Spear. You can also run Play Crits on both of these things. Play Crits is really strong. Play Crits, this is a really strong option. Reduces those pesky healers. Even Life Stealing is good as well. The other Spear, you get heavy melee attacks deal more damage. Trenchant Strike, heavy melee attacks deal more damage. Lots of damage from your heavies. This is super strong. It's more situational than the Scorpion Stinger because you just have to throw Javelin and you're getting the most value out of it. With this, you have to weave in heavies a lot more. But this is still a solid artifact. The one I would personally choose would be the Scorpion Stinger or the Venom. I'm not a big fan personally of the Butcher. For the artifacts, you can run Endless Thirst, Blood Drinker, and Ankh. All these are fine. Ankh is really good because if you're running medium or heavy in a group, Ankh definitely has a lot more value there than Light, in my opinion. Bloodthirster if you just like the extra lifesteal, and Endless Thirst is just the best solo overall artifact to run. This setup can be run in medium, light, or heavy. Light is the most skillful. Heavy is just like you're just a meat shield that walks at people, CCs them, and you're just a nuisance. The main problem with this build, I should mention, is that you will struggle against Firestaff Blunderbuss build. You will struggle against that one, or Rapier Firestaff, just because Spear has no mobility. Unless you're running the Scorpion Stinger and you hit the Javelin, then range is not as much as a problem. But Tumbler Feet Wrap here. This, I think, one of the best artifacts in the game. Two leather pants, want more attributes, featherweight, a little bit more tankiness while you're in light. Then the head wrap here, this reduces dots, good stuff. We do unlock a new artifact, Void Darkplate. If you are in heavy, this is the artifact to run, by the way. You get this in Dungeon and Cutlass Keys by doing the Mutated Dungeon and Cutlass Keys. It's like a pirate dungeon. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the only dungeon in Cutlass Keys you get this from. You can also run Ironheart here. When not in heavy, your loadout, you increase your max health by 20%. This is also really strong as well. You get this from the PvP track. Now, if you want to run the Spear artifact, I recommend farming this sword, Life Ring Longsword. It comes with Vicious and Enchanted. You would put either Keen Speed, Keenly Jagged. All those are good perks here. Totally up to you. Third perk, but super easy sword to farm. Highly recommend grabbing this if you are going for the Spear artifact. Vice versa, if you're getting the Butcher, the Life Ring Spear is an amazing, one of the better drop weapons in the game. Another easy weapon to farm. Get Vicious and Keenly Dagger, 2 amazing perks. And then you can put like Keen Spear or Tomb in here, whatever you want. You get this in Eden Grove. You just come here, you farm this, super easy to grab. There'll be a way shot right here. You run over here. You do need a group for this, so keep that in mind. And the sword is the same in both life rings, so you get both of them from the same spot. So even if you don't have an artifact, going there and farming is super good because getting both these weapons. For your shield that I recommend grabbing is the Soul Shroud round shield. You get this by doing Merc, the elite area and Merc guard. It comes with 3 amazing perks: base damage, crit chance, and keenly empowered. You can put Vicious on this bad boy, or Enchanted, or a shield perk, whatever you want. You just basically run through here, and all the enemies that you will kill will, not all, but a lot of the enemies you will kill as you run through here will drop this shield. You need a group for this. So onto the trees, I recommend running Shield Rush, Leaping Strikes, and Upheaval. This is a true combo, Leaping Strikes into Shield Rush. I don't know if it's true combo into Upheaval. If that is true, then this combo will be absolutely disgusting. The Leaping Strike perk, you want this on your weapon, by the way. So if you're not running the Butcher artifact, put Leaping Strike perk on your weapon. It is really, really strong. So I highly recommend grabbing this on your weapon. And if you're in heavy armor, Shield Rush on your shield is extremely strong as well. Now, the fun thing about Sword and Shield is this is the best weapon in the game, in my opinion. So you can run all of these skills are good, actually. So whatever you want to run with this build, do it. It's good. All these... The weakest one, I think, is Whirling Blades, but they're all good skills, so just run whatever you like. All right, on to Spear. Now, Spear, once again, quite a few ways to run this. Skewer, Perforate, and Cyclone is really strong. Perforate and Skewer are super good abilities as well. Generally, Cyclone will be your flex spot. So if you're running the Scorpion Stinger, you would sub out Cyclone for Javelin, and if you're running the heavy attack one, the Venom, you would run Sweep instead of Cyclone, and you would put Sweep on your weapon. Sweep on your weapon is another extremely strong perk to put on your weapon. Perforate is also good to put on your weapon if you're in heavy, because this gives you Fortify when you use the Perforate perk, and Skewer is another decent one to put on your weapon as well. A lot of good Spear perks. These weapons are so good. And then the stats you would run for this is 150 Strength, 150 to 200 Constitution, with 300 to 350 Dexterity. And this can be ran, once again, in light, medium, or heavy. Next up, we have the Great Sword, Sword and Shield. This one is like the other build, Sword and Shield Spear, except this has more mobility, but this is weaker in melee combat. So Sword and Shield Spear is better versus other melee, where Great Sword and Sword is better versus range. Now, for this one, you only have one artifact to choose from, and that is the Serenity. You get this from the PvP track. And this is a must to make Great Sword generally work, because this artifact is completely broken, basically best in slot. You would pair this by farming the Life Ring Great Sword and getting these exact perks. I went over how to get Life Ring earlier. Serenity drops from the PvP track board, so you have to be doing OPRs and arenas to grab this bad boy, and you would put a gem slot on this. The gem slot you would slot would be the same as this, Empowering Gambit from an Opal. So you put Opal in here, you put Arcane Ignite, or you can get a Life Steal one where you get Life Steal when you hit. That's one I personally like to run, but overall I think this one is better. Getting the arcane damage per second. This one's super strong because when you're stance switching, you gain empowerment, increasing overall damage by 20%. Or when you're defensive stance, you gain 20% empowerment, increasing your armor by 20%. For the artifacts I recommend run, Blood Drinker here is actually super viable because Great Sword does so much damage, you actually get an insane amount of healing from Blood Drinker, but generally, once again, Endless, there's just the be-end and all for earring artifacts. Ankh is good if you're running this in medium or heavy. This build can be run in light, medium, or heavy, by the way, so all three. Generally, it's just heavy is just also the best way to run this because heavy is just so stat dense, but light is most fun, so I like light. Tumbler Feet Wrap, great. Two Leather Pants, the weakest of the option. Void Dark Plate, if you're in heavy, I recommend running this. The Head Wrap to reduce those base duration of your crowd control debuffs. Iron Heart is pretty strong as well if you're going to run this in medium. Gives you 20% more health. Soul Shroud is the round shield I recommend grabbing. If you are going heavy, you would have the Tower Shield. Kite Shields are basically useless in this game. You'd either go round shield in medium and light, or Tower Shield in heavy. Either a shield perk on this, Keenly Jagged I think you can run, or Enchanted are all good. You get this in Merc. I showed exactly where Merc in the previous weapon. Onto the skills. The skills I personally like to run is Steadfast Strike, Skyward Slash, and Relentless Rush. The only perks that I recommend grabbing for your armor would be Relentless Rush perk, Crosscut perk, or Calamity Counter perk. The rest of these perks, in my opinion, aren't very good to grab. PvE wise, Skyward Slash is actually pretty good to get. For PvP, I don't like it. Now, there's quite a few ways you can run the Greatsword, but this is generally what I find to be the best. You can drop Skyward Slash here for Crosscut. If you are running Crosscut, you need Leeching Crosscut, in my opinion, to make Crosscut worth running. Keep that in mind. You can drop Steadfast Strike for Calamity Counter, or if you're like running heavy and you want to be a super tanky boy, you can drop Skyward Slash and just get Calamity Counter instead to make you harder to kill. You always want Relentless Rush on every Greatsword build. And if you choose 2 defensive, you would grab this final perk. And if you choose 2 onslaught perks, you grab this one. Sword and Shield, Leaping Strike, Shield Rush, Upheaval. Just generally, I think it's going to be super strong. Upheaval seems broken next patch. Blades, Shield Bash, and Defender's Resolve, all solid, good options if you don't want to run what I have here. But this is what I believe will be meta. And like I said, Leaping Strike, always put this on your sword. It's one of the best weapon perks in the game to be on your weapon. Shield Rush, if you're in heavy, Shield Rush on your shield is a must. This thing is absolutely monstrous with how much fortified this gives you. Upheaval, you want this 100% on your armor as well. Defender's Resolve and Whirling Blade are not bad to have on your armor as well. For this build, you can be in light, medium, or heavy. Your stats will be 150 to 200 Constitution, 150 Strength, 300 to 350 Dexterity. And for our final weapon combination will be Fire Staff Rapier. I think this will be actually the best build next patch, hands down, for solo play. You can pair this with either the Infernal or the Finisher. The Finisher you get in the Elysian Wilds by killing Mammoths. One of the easier artifacts to get in the game, so I highly recommend grabbing this one as quickly as possible. The Infernal is a lot harder. You have to do mutations. A lot harder to grab this one. For the Infernal, you'd put attunement on this bad boy. For the Finisher, a bunch of things. You can put Keen, Enchanted, Keen Speed for extra mobility is really good, or you can put Plate Crits. What this does is attacks against bleeding targets deal 15% more damage, so you need your Fire Staff to have Keenly Jagged. Luckily, the Syndicate Fire Staff that I mentioned earlier has that can be farmed in Brimstone. Super easy to get. So the Finisher, you grab the Finisher, you go quickly to Brimstone, farm the Syndicate Fire Staff, and you will have one of the strongest PvP builds in the game, and you get it extremely quickly. Gem you want to slot in the Finisher will be this exact gem, a Ruby with Ignite, so when you hit enemy you inflict burn. The Infernal, you will want the Opal with Ignite, not Arcane here, so when you hit someone you inflict burn as well. For the jewelry of choice, I recommend still Endless Thirst. Like again, I think it's the best artifact in the game. If you don't want to run Endless Thirst, Bloodrinker is okay here. Ankh I wouldn't really recommend. If you are going to run your ring, I recommend getting Hardy, always on your ring. Burning, since you are running Fire Staff here, is a must. And then the third perk being Flame Damage. When you deal damage, you do 7% more flame damage. For your artifact on your armor, Tumbler, Feet Wraps, gotta go with you. Get Shirking Heels or Elemental Aversion, just too good. Attuned Leather Pants, solid. Featherweight, another solid option. These are easy to get, so. And then the head wrap here is pretty good because you reduce the dots on you, and if you're finding another Fire Staff, that can come in clutch. This is one of the builds that I actually would try and recommend. You can also go for Fire Harnessing if you want, increasing your overall flame damage, just making you do more damage. But this is not as stat dense as Elemental Aversion, so keep that in mind. Syndicate Fire Staff is what you will grab if you go Finisher route. With this, you would put Keenly Jagged, Enchanted, and put like Keen Speed on this or Flame Attunement. A Life Ring Rapier. Try and farm this one up. The only problem is Rogue is not super good in PvP anymore. Target lock, but they are nerfing target lock, so it will be interesting how strong Rogue will be. And I recommend, just Keen Speed, Enchanted, Vicious, solid perks. Onto the Rapier tree. 2 ways to run the Rapier: Flèche, Evade, and Flourish and Finish, or Flèche, Evade, and Riposte. Now, if you're going to run Flèche, Evade, and Riposte, it's arguable that you should just be running the Hatchet instead, because the Hatchet has more overall survivability than the Rapier, technically. Flèche, Evade, and Flourish and Finish is really strong, though, because Flourish and Finish gives you stamina when you hit them. It's also kind of a mini movement ability, and does damage. So, perk that you want to look to grab is just the Evade perk on your armor. Super good. And then for the Fire Staff here, Fireball, Pillar of Fire, and Burnout is what I recommend running. I wouldn't grab Flamethrower with this build at all. But Fireball and Pillar of Fire perks, definitely recommend getting those. For this build, once again, light, 150 to 200 Constitution. Rest of those bad boys into Intelligence. You can sometimes get away with 50 Dexterity or 100 Dex, and then the rest of the points into Int. But you want to run everything into Int because most of your damage on this build comes from the Fire Staff. That's why you primarily shove everything into Int with your 150 to 200 Constitution. Alright, bonus round, Life Staff Rapier. This is the best healing combo for PvP. Rapier gives you a lot of mobility, while the Life Staff keeps you alive. You're basically an unkillable rat. I recommend getting Sacred Ground, Divine Embrace, Light's Embrace. I also recommend grabbing all 3 of these perks on your armor or your weapons. I actually get Light's Embrace on your weapon. You will have a lot of fun. This gives you 30% haste when you heal yourself, so I recommend grabbing this on your weapon. But if you don't want to run Light's Embrace and you want to be more group focused, Orb of Protection is a really solid option. For the Rapier tree, you would run Fléché, Evade, and Riposte, running pretty much exactly what I have here. And it doesn't really matter what you run in the Rapier tree. This is just for pure survivability for you. This you would run Light, 200 Constitution about, and the rest to Focused. You can even run more Con, 250 Con, and the rest into Focus. You would put a Diamond in your Life Staff. You would put a Amber into your Rapier, so it scales off Focus. And then you would put Great Axe, Fire Staff. This is actually really strong. The only reason why I didn't mention this is because you need the Artifact Great Axe to make this viable, or the Artifact Fire Staff to make this viable. So it's late game. You can't run this early game, but this is really strong once you grab it. Generally, you run Reap, Charge, and Maelstrom. Reap perk is really strong. Maelstrom perk is also really strong as well to get on your weapon or armor. Flex this a little bit by dropping Maelstrom for maybe Execute or Gravity Well for more CC. But generally, this is what I find to be the best. Maelstrom, Reap, and Charge. And for the Fire Staff here, Fireball, Pillar of Fire with Burnout is what I recommend grabbing. You can run Flamethrower if you want with this setup. That's a good option. Fireball, Pillar of Fire. You need these on your armor. Same with Flamethrower. The Abyss, you grab this by doing 65 plus portals and opening the boxes. You just need to flag up for a group, get into a group, do corrupted portals, the high level ones, and pray to God you get this from opening it. Or you can run the Infernal. I've run the Infernal plenty of times before this. The stats that you want to run for this build is 50 Strength, 150 to 200 Constitution, and the rest in Intelligence. If you guys did find this video helpful, it would mean a lot to me. Hit this like button and subscribe. I'll also be streaming over on Twitch, so if you have any questions, come stop by the Twitch. I'll be happy to answer them, and I also will leave the link to this website in the description. So if I missed something, you can check it out yourself.